Good morning, Sense of Things. We are so happy to have you here for another episode of the Sense of Things podcast. On today's show, I'm actually going to take the reins a little bit, and Ron will be our running commentator. We're going to talk a little bit about a unique festival that happens every year here in Austin. It just so happens to be in this town that I live in. In addition to that, this is one of our special shows where we're going to go over some things about some stock ideas, not necessarily ones that I want you to buy, but ones that you should be keeping your eye on during this earnings season. And we're just kicking off earnings season right now. So stay tuned. We'll be right on in just a second. And welcome to the show, folks. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Doing well. I know you got some fun things planned for today.
Yes, we'll have a good day to start. You're going to be taking a week off here coming up. Where are you going on vacation, by the way?
Going to Sedona.
Nice.
Just to let you know, bring you and the audience into my pathetic life. Because of all my moving around and whatever, I was trying to figure out the last time I took a work day off, a Monday through Friday off, 3 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, trying to do a little bit of reboot in a slower part of the year. So it'll be good.
Yep, and you can go up to the vortex and be vortexed and everything up there in Sedona.
I don't know about that, but I know it's going to be about 10 to 15 degrees cooler up there.
That's even better. So go enjoy it. All right, we're going to kick it off today. This will be me running the show today. Wanted to share with the audience a unique event that happens once a year in Austin. And it's called the Hariy Festival. So the Hariy Festival, the whole thing about the Hariy thing is...
Hold on, you should have put a disclaimer. Don't eat before you watch our podcast.
I just love the look on all the ladies' faces that are the judges for the Hariy thing. So the whole thing came about apparently back in the 1800s when settlers were coming through here. There was a kid that was on a wagon that they went through a water thing and he got bounced out. They lost him. I don't know how, but he basically grew up as like in the wild. He was this hairy guy and he would screw with people that were crossing this little river crossing right where we live.
Oh.
And then it became the Hariy Festival. There's a Hariy Road and everything else. So I live about 2 miles north of Hariy Road.
Just out of curiosity, were you ever the Grand Marshal for this event?
I have never been the Grand Marshal. I have been to it. I do, every time I do go to it, I do have to go to my eye doctor afterwards and have my eyes flushed from seeing the Hariy. This was last year's winner, by the way, of the Hariy Festival. So just so you know, that's the competition that's out there.
Gotcha. The only thing more interesting than probably the talent itself are the groupies and the ladies that are around there going, oh yeah, I've got to meet that guy.
I gotta have me one of those. So yeah, it's interesting. If you're into Hariy, it is the place to be in October. So they've announced the festival, I think is the first week of October this year.
I think I'm away.
Yeah, so the weather should be down to about 100 degrees by that point. We should be good by October.
By that point, they'll be molting.
Yeah. Or they'll be shorn afterwards. We're not sure, but
hey.
All right.
Hopefully we have some fun stuff.
Yes, let's kick this thing off today. We're in the earnings season, and what I wanted to do is just share a few stocks that I'm watching during this time period. Not necessarily saying these are things that you should invest in. You should do all your research and see if it fits into your portfolio. But these are things that I thought were just interesting, and they're in interesting spots and have interesting stories at this time. The companies we're going to take a look at: Goldman Sachs, Google, Spotify, Intuitive Surgical, Walmart, and TJ Maxx. And I will say Walmart and TJ Maxx are a theme that I've had with where we are in the current economic cycle. Now, before we kick off, I just want to say that these stocks could be held by clients of either of our firms at that point. So Do not take this as advice. It is just instructional and just giving you some ideas of things and how we look at it when we're looking at stocks.
And by the way, just a quick note, if you go, wait till you get to Google. I'll let you go.
Okay. All right, so let's kick off with Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is an interesting story. One of the top banks slash, of course, mergers
Investment
and acquisitions.
banks,
Yeah, mergers and acquisitions house, investment bank, one of the top, has some of the top talent in the industry, has really had a fantastic about last 9 months. The last 3 earnings reports, including this last week, have been earnings beats. It's been an interesting story. They are just ahead of the game. And I think really telling a story of mergers and acquisitions are still there. Investment banking is still there. And certainly the trading operations of some of these big banks are still there. Some of the things that I was looking at, now the earnings per share estimate, now I did this a few days ago before the earnings came out. Earnings per share estimate was $8.37. Revenue estimate was $12.35 billion. They came in at $8.78 per share, revenue of $12.7 billion. So they were about $400 billion above, or 400 million above where they were expected to be for the quarter. Last 2 quarters have been upward surprises. This was a third one. We've of course had a positive market this year. So the story being that when you have a positive market like that, helps with their trading volumes, which is how part of the way they make money. M&A activity picked up in Q1, which has been good because it's been dead for about 2.5, 3 years now. We've got a resilient economy, but some cracks are starting to show, and it's up over 50% for the year. So it was priced for perfection, and it came out with a little bit more than perfection. So an interesting stock. I think it's been one that I've been keeping an eye on for a while. And for me, it's one that I always look at from a financial sector perspective as we roll into that next earnings season, because they're usually
the stock price just hit over $500 today.
Yeah.
After earnings. And not only that, but Goldman Sachs and Blackstone, BX, have been known as having the smartest people in Wall Street. Yeah. And this is what happens. They don't lose money. No. And if the economy is down, they find a way to make money. Those two companies always find a way to work it out.
Yeah. And like I said, like you said, they recruit the best of the best. They are the top investment bank for all the people coming out of the best finance programs in the country. Those top 5 to 10 Ivy League / top colleges, they're going to recruit to Goldman Sachs. Continue to play the game. If you're looking for a finance position in your portfolio, it's well worth taking a look at.
100%.
So let's move on to Google, or Alphabet. They now call themselves Alphabet. I still call them Google because
nobody calls them Alphabet.
Yeah, that's my coming to America. If Mama called him Clay, I call him Clay. It's Google, and their stock symbol is still Goog.
Actually, real quick, that's where I wanted to go. Actually, there's 2 classes of shares.
Yep.
The main share is GOGL.
Yep.
GOG is their B class share.
Yeah, which for most of us, it doesn't make any damn difference. But it's priced virtually the same thing and everything else. So I bounce between the two anytime I've invested in it. Once again, it's been off on a tear. It is a bellwether of the market. It is one of the Magnificent Seven that we hear about all the time. The thing I look at when it comes to Alphabet is I think they're an AI story now more than anything. They just recently announced with Samsung a partnership where all Samsung devices will have Google's AI integrated into them. The Gemini product is competing directly with ChatGPT. Personally, I use both, and I will say I think Gemini competes with ChatGPT 3.5. There's 3 different versions of ChatGPT. It does a pretty dang good job of getting information and consolidating information. The more advanced things that ChatGPT does, they just can't keep up with it. However, they're putting a lot of money into it, and they're going there. So the next earnings announcements next week on the 23rd. FactSet earnings estimate, $1.83 a share. Revenue, 84.14 billion on that. One of the things that I have been interested in is they've been extremely aggressive on their buybacks. The stock is up over 67% over the last year. It is considered the most expensive of the Magnificent Seven. I think some concerns that everybody always has with them, one of their major, of course, revenue sources is advertising revenue. Those people that are using Google's AdWords, a lot of times that's small businesses. And that can be a challenge. If small businesses are getting tweaked a little bit, they start cutting back on their budgets. One of the, I think, best factors, one of the most interesting factors for me on this is their aggressive move into advertising on the YouTube platform. So they actually separated Google AdWords from YouTube advertising, and YouTube advertising has been a major factor, just massively. And I will say we use it on our show to advertise our show. I use it in several other places, and I will tell you it is very effective because when people are in there watching a YouTube video, they're going to get that little ad that pops in there on almost everything. Another piece of the pie is Google's cloud platform, which is become a major revenue source for them. So Google has become less of an advertising play, and it's started to broaden themselves out a little bit. They do charge. They have for their Google AI a non-paid and a paid version. And I will tell you, for Google Workspace, it's expensive for Gemini's product there. They're going into this with the thought that, hey, we're going to make money off of AI, which I think is interesting. And I think as they spend more money on it and integrate with more devices, it'll be an interesting story to see how they can further diversify their revenue.
Yeah, I'm a huge go. Put it this way. Until there's something better, nothing's going to compete with Google, with search in general. And even with ChatGPT, like people really still don't use Bing. Bing's not a bad product.
No.
Bing actually, in some ways, was doing features and functionality ahead of Google, and then Google copied them. So it goes back and forth quite a bit. But Google's a cash cow, and it always will be. But the difference is the stock price too far ahead? And with these tech stocks, you'll get two analysts that justify a 30 PE, and then you get 10 analysts that justify a 45 PE.
Yeah.
And there's no real quote unquote fair value for it. It's just one of those forever holds right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things when people ask me, when do we get out? I'm like, when it stops going up. At this point,
probably when they get under 50% market share. I think they have 70 or 80% now.
Yeah. And they're not going anywhere because they keep innovating and they keep pushing hard to be at the forefront of it. It is interesting to watch them sometimes because they'll lay back a little bit and see what some of their competitors do, and then they just come pouncing in because they've got the money to do it.
And actually, last quick point on Google, and we can move on, is even if they lose some market share on search, they're the #1 video app for YouTube.
Yeah.
And what else is even close?
Well, but
competing with the library of YouTube. You could talk about some of the other platforms like TikTok, but they don't have the library that YouTube has with the channels and everything else. So so even if they lose market share on search, nobody's going to compete with them on YouTube for a very long time.
No, and the thing is, the #1 and #2 search in the world are Google and YouTube. So they own both, and they could easily be one of those companies that says, hey, we've got the money. If somebody's trying to take our share, we'll just come in and buy them out.
Hey, they bought YouTube. Remember, they bought YouTube for $1 billion.
Yep.
Because they were trying to work on one of their own. They said, screw it, we'll buy YouTube. Those guys became multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that Google created YouTube. They didn't.
No, they didn't. In fact, they actually left the team in place for many years.
Yeah.
That was developing YouTube and just said, okay, take it and go. Make it better, much Zuckerberg did with Instagram. He just kept that team in place and said, okay, just start innovating. You have all the money, just go do what you need to do at this point. All right, so next one on my list is Spotify. And I think Spotify is probably one of the most intriguing stories. They've always been a big player, but they've tried to taken it to the next level. And they've added now podcasts, they've added music. Most recently, they've also added audiobooks, which I think is an interesting play to try and take on Amazon. Where Amazon, you've got to have a subscription for the Audible service, and you get 1 or 2 books per month that you get that you don't have to pay for. Spotify, you can listen to as many audiobooks as you want to if you pay for the service. And it's become a good play. Our show is on Spotify. I have 2 different shows that are on Spotify at that point.
Yeah, serendipitous timing on Spotify. I'm a late adopter. Yeah. I actually finally got the app about 2.5 months ago. Okay. Really liked it, and I'm getting the premium now. And I think with the premium, don't hold it. I think you get X amount of hours. I'm not even going to get. I think it's 8 to 10, but you get X amount of hours of free audiobooks.
Yeah.
So it's actually, and I haven't done any of those yet. But I got to tell you, it's a pretty easy service. And after 20 years, I canceled my Sirius subscription.
Wow.
To do Spotify.
Yeah, now cars can do that. For the longest time, I have one vehicle that you can only do Sirius on. It's a Sirius radio, but most of the others, as long as you have internet access or the ability to get to the internet, you can have Spotify in your car. And it's, once again, just as
I hit the auxiliary button and then it goes on my phone.
Yeah, beautiful. Couple things, the earnings per share estimate, this will be July 23rd as well. I think it'll be a big week next week for some of the tech plays. Earnings per share 105. FactSet revenue 3.8 billion for the quarter. It is priced a little bit for perfection. However, although it's up 70% year over year, it's been moving a little sideways as a sidewinder for the last month or so. Once again, it's pulled itself back in. Recent price hike for the premium subscribers like Ron. The industry is saying, is this the wrong time to do it because the industry or because the economy is horrible and all that? I think it's the exact right time to do it.
And they were an early adopter. They did great during COVID. They yanked back pretty significantly, and then people realized, hey, this is a legit platform. I wouldn't doubt if they start to do more video in the future.
It would not surprise me. I think that's their next play. It's a bandwidth issue in most businesses like that. You've really got to make some major commitments to bandwidth to be able to do that and deliver a high quality product.
And real quick before we move on, I'm going to tell you an ideal M&A partner for Spotify. Netflix.
Yeah.
Think about the combination of those 2 companies between music, books, podcast, and video coming together. And think about just the subscription models with both.
Yeah.
Make everybody a lot stickier.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, it can be like Disney, and Disney's partnered with a couple different ones. Of course, they own part of Hulu. They partnered with other ones where they've done that same thing. I could see something like that happening, and I think it would be a smart move for both, where you don't have to merge, but you just partner up together.
No, they probably use a lot of the same data centers and whatever.
Most likely, yeah, that's the thing. And it's okay, you don't have to create something new in those cases. Still healthy user growth over this last year, and it's really been going. Year over year growth for Q1 was up over 15%. One of the cool things about this is I was looking into the financials of the company. It was great because year over year growth of their earnings was 15%, but their expense discipline was insanely good. They only had 1.5% year over year growth in their expenses. So that means they're adding top line and they're not getting crushed on the bottom line. And as we talked about, added audiobooks to their subscription plans, which I think is a smart move because it's the way people are going at this point.
Yep.
Another play that I consider interesting is Intuitive Surgical. It's one that over the years I've been in and out of. I think one of the most innovative companies. They own the market of robotic surgery. Yep, so if you've ever seen the big robotic surgical things, the Da Vinci system, they are the inventors of the Da Vinci system, which still to this day is the top for surgical.
Yeah, quick note on Intuitive Surgical. This is not for the faint of heart if you're looking for a stable stock price. It
Yeah.
moves in chunks up and down, but you're right. They have the best market share and the best product, but it is not for the faint of heart if you're looking for a stable stock price.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've got a small dividend, but they throw most of their money back into research and development. July 18th, which will be later today after the market, they have their earnings coming out. Earnings per share 154, FactSet revenue 1.97 billion. 4 quarters of earnings beats in a row. The last quarter, the company announced a lower than expected growth for Da Vinci systems, and that kind of whacked the stock right out of the gate, even though it beat on earnings. So it'll be interesting to hear today what they're saying about the future with that. I said in here too, will this be part of Ron's medical in the second half of year thing that we talked about a few months ago? They do have a 77 PE, but with the kind of growth rate they've had, that's actually somewhat in line. And it still continues to be a strong category. And I see the future of robotic surgery. There will be a lot more than less going forward.
And you know what? They have such a high PE. The stock has been on a tear over the last year and a half. The amazing thing is that people are still buying it, even with that PE, because of their market position and the technology.
Yeah. I mean, once again, I don't see any less robotic surgery in the future. And there's really no other major competitors. There's a few competitors out there, but there's no major competitors with the penetration in the market. And these things aren't cheap either.
And I will say, I don't know if I want somebody doing open heart surgery on me from the other side of the world, but I'm not sure if it's used for open heart surgery.
It is. It's basically used for a lot of surgeries, but think of it from the perspective of you can have the best surgeon in the world, regardless of where you are in the world.
Absolutely, 100%.
Without having to travel there. So the last two that we're going to go over are Walmart and TJ Maxx, are really part of my theme for this year of what I call the trade, meaning that as the economy has stressed out the buyer is still out there. They're still spending money, but they're transitioning from the higher cost places to buy things to a little bit more of a value. So they're becoming more value oriented, and specifically the middle class, the more wealthy middle class have been transitioning towards Walmart. And this is something we've seen over the last several months. We've seen just amazing earnings. They had a just huge gap up here a few months ago with the last earnings report. And I would assume that we're probably going to see, oh, wait a minute. Apparently I didn't update this from Intuitive Surgical, but earnings per share, August 15th, before the market, earnings per share 65 cents, FactSet revenue 168.63 billion. It's amazing to me the margin on these retail stocks.
Da Vinci, buying power.
Yeah, Da Vinci, it's like 1.9 million and $1.65 or $1.85 per share, 168 billion and 65 cents a share revenue. It's amazing to me. They have got a strategic expansion and focus on the price-sensitive customer, and that seems to be working. It's attracting people. Specifically, they were talking about a lot of the target customers that have shifted down or traded down in some aspects. I personally think Walmart's kind of traded. They've improved their stores to attract that type of customer, I think, a little bit more. I think one of the most interesting stories for them is the Walmart.com is the second largest online retailer behind Amazon. And
they're taking some of Amazon's market share.
Yeah, and it's probably the least known of the major of these, but it's out there. We use it as a business tool. We used to use Amazon to buy supplies for our office. We actually use Walmart.com because we can click a button and it will be here in 15 minutes or 20 minutes to our office. Amazing. International sales. So Walmart in China. Now, we talked about it on our previous show this week about Walmart in Germany. Ron had a little section on that where they failed miserably. But Walmart China has been incredibly good. Flipkart, which I wasn't able to quite figure out where exactly Flipkart is, but they've increased 10%, and their international e-commerce is literally off the charts good at this point. So they're really executing around the world, not just here in the United States. Ron, you got anything on that?
We've talked about Walmart before. They've gone more upmarket as far as average household income. 50% of their sales is people are coming in for one thing and then it's going to Costco. If you had 5 things on your shopping list, you're leaving with 15.
Yeah.
Walmart's no different.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, with the additional, I think one of the additional interesting things with them, like with Walmart.com, you can purchase something on Walmart.com and have it delivered to the store. So it can be in the store that day and you can go pick it up. I think it's a smart move because then it makes you go into the store and you go in to pick up your online thing and you end up buying half your groceries and clothing and everything else because you got to get through the store to get to that.
And I'll tell you, one of the other major differences between Walmart and Costco, at Walmart on the way out, I can grab a bag of Haribo gummy bears. So a little bit of crack for the rest of the day. You can't do that at Costco.
No, that's not it. They just don't have that at their checkout stand. So,
by the way, just a quick point of reference. When I was younger, one of the fun things I used to do with gummy bears is put it on a plate and put it in the microwave oven and watch it all bubble up. It was a lot of fun when I was younger.
Most of us,
just a quick side note,
with our magnifying glasses, but Ron was
like the shrinky dinks. That's when I got that. Nobody knows that if they were under 45 years old today. Remember the shrinky dinks?
I do remember the shrinky dinks.
That's where I got the idea to heat up the gummy bears in the microwave.
I've never heated up a gummy bear, but now you're making me think about this. I should do it. Okay, so my last play is also the same kind of theme of that trade down trade. TJ Maxx. So TJ Maxx owns TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods. And it was funny because I guess I didn't realize that. I don't have a close TJ Maxx to me, but we have a Marshalls and we have a Home Goods, and we go to those all the time. And it's, I guess the way they explain it is it's like a treasure hunt because they don't keep any constant inventory. They're constantly buying up old inventory for other retailers. And it's a place that if you're on a budget, you can get something that's a nice brand for a really low price in a lot of cases. I think it's, once again, that part of that trade down trade, it has certainly been a phenomenal stock over the last year. August 21st, before the market, is the earnings coming out. 92 cents a share, earnings per share, 13.31 billion. Absolutely positive performance in Q1 with strong same-store sales across all 3 of their brands with increased traffic, which is interesting. This is part of my trade down strategy where higher income consumers are exploring their brands on the 3 brands that they have. They use what they call a flexible inventory strategy, which allows them to keep trying and adjusting their inventory based on what people want. So if people are buying one certain thing, they're going to try and buy more of that or find more of that, and just always try and be in front of where the customer is. They're also really focused on expense management inside of the company, which has been fantastic from that aspect. That's my 5 or 6 stocks that I think are really interesting during this earnings season. Once again, do your research. If one of these fits into a portion or a sleeve of your portfolio, I think they're all worth a look in those cases.
Yeah, definitely good ideas that could percolate a little higher, and especially with stocks like Google and stocks like Goldman Sachs, and they're all going to do better when interest rates come down here in the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, but I think the economy will still be stretched for a little while. And I think, especially with the trade down trade, I think it's going to be an intriguing animal. And it's not all of those stocks in that area. I think it's the ones that are doing right now are the TJ Maxx's, the Abercrombie and Fitch's, the Walmarts. If you look at the dollar stores, which typically you would think, okay, if the economy is a bit stretched, the dollar stores would do well. They're not doing great. They're not doing poorly. They're ones that I would say until things got really bad, you're probably not going to see them pop up much. But I think there's that kind of middle, where the middle class is going has been in this TJ Maxx Walmart world.
I agree.
that you
I
want to keep
agree.
an eye on. Well, thanks a lot, folks. We appreciate you. Hopefully you like this. Give us an upvote. Let us know if you like this stuff. Give us a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we put these out on a regular basis, but we'll do a few extra shows here and there like this, where we'll talk about some of these type of subjects. So thanks a lot. And we hope that we'll see you back here very soon.